Okay, I hope this is recording. Ah, man. Okay. Yo, it's your boy Jay. It's the Digital Revolution podcast. Guys, the revolution will not be televised. Come in. All are welcome. Come as you are. In the words of Kurt Cobain, um, love one another. And above all else, learn to love yourself. I'm going to see if that sticks. Okay. But anyway, so guys, thank you guys for the subscribers that I have. I'm trying to grow my channel, trying to be a source of genuine good information out there. There is so fucking much going on. I hope all are well. I hope all are gainfully employed. The economy is sucking. Guys, sorry about the last podcast that I did. I was trying to test it where, I'm going to be doing some visual where you can see me because, like, even me, I like to see a face or have a face with a name or whatever. And I will be doing some podcasts where it won't be any visual, just be audio. Some of the topics that I deal with are very heavy and very deep, and I hope that I'm making some type of a. I hope I'm conveying some type of a information to the audience that I have thus far. Some of the topics that I deal with, again, like I'm saying, are deep and heavy, and I'm not always sure if I'm getting the information across. I am not a newscaster or anything like that, or any kind of affiliate of any kind of news, anything. I'm just here, independently. I am a licensed real estate agent and I am a licensed esthetician. So I help people with their housing, and housing sucks right now. And I help people with their skin, which that might actually be a little bit better. But I digress, and enough about me, guys. There's so much to get into. I hope all are well. I hope all are making money because the economy sucks. We're seeing some stagnation in the economy. And before I go into the intro, again, guys, I just had to apologize about um, the last podcast. I was dealing with some technical difficulties, but if you guys are ride or dying with me, then I fucks with you, okay, as they say. But anyways, yeah. So the economy sucks, guys. This is going to be we're going to be reviewing exclusively Robert Kennedy Jr.'s interview with Tucker Carlson. Guys, this interview I believe is historic. If you're like me and you're into this podcast, or you're into podcasts that are very similar, that people like us, we do like loads and loads of research. Me personally, I've been doing research about the federal government and about the government now for almost 7 years, compiling hundreds of pages of notes just on the topic of the government. And my research has led me all the way down the rabbit hole, all the way to 500,000 BCE, meaning before the Common Era, or sometime misnomered before Christ. So 500,000 BCE when you go down the timeline. Now, I don't want to make this podcast too long, which I have a tendency of doing, but the furthest that I've gone in the conspiracy theories, and you can check me if you've gone deeper, but the furthest down the rabbit hole that you go, like sort of at the bottom of the barrel, is the conspiracy theories that have to do with Antarctica and with offshore safe havens of assets off the planet, meaning that these offshore havens are off the planet, like on the moon, and possibly human colonies deep in outer space, and possibly the people that are controlling the planet are on Alpha Centauri, which is the closest, I believe, solar system that is closest to Earth. Forget how many light years it is, but that's about as far as the conspiracy theories go. Also, too, you have the going a little bit deeper into the conspiracy theory, you find, that these beings that are controlling the central banks and controlling like the Rothschild and the Illuminati families, that they're off world, they're on another planet. They have diversified. Why would you put all your eggs on one basket? You would diversify onto other planets. And so that's about as far as it goes. And also you deal with the conspiracy theory of, or the exopolitical theory of beings from another, interdimensional beings interacting with this dimension. So that's about as far as you go into the conspiracy theories. Of course, you have the aliens, and I don't really want to focus on the aliens right now, but I will say that um, I broke this story 4 months before the government or any kind of news agency broke the story. The alt media is way, way ahead. And now, they're essentially normalizing aliens. And guys, the aliens have been around for years. Let me take a sip of my water. It's your boy Jay. It's the Digital Revolution Podcast, guys. I hope you guys are following me. Please like and subscribe and get this information out there. I'm trying to build my channel. I do tons of research, and I'm trying to present this research in a coherent, um, very interesting and dynamic and synergistic way to understand. And really, me personally, I want to get to big overviews, big picture thinking, made simple. But yeah, so before we get on to our Robert Kennedy interview, we were just, doing my introduction. And about as far as the conspiracy theories go, you find off-world colonies, beings interacting, or beings from other dimensions interacting with this dimension. And then, we were talking about the aliens, and guys, the aliens have been here forever. It's been it was like almost, for them to talk about it now, for the government to release this information now, it's almost like, you know 40 years too late, because 40 years ago it was a no-brainer. 40 years ago you would have talked about the aliens, people would have been like, who? Okay. Okay, so I believe that most people experience the aliens when they go to sleep at night, when they're going to bed. That's when they do the abductions. And the abductions, and again, I don't want to go too deep into this, but I have a tendency of going on a tangent. But follow me, guys. So yeah, so most people, they encounter aliens when they go to sleep at night, because that's when the aliens abduct you. Now, how they abduct you, I cannot necessarily explain, but obviously they have some, they're privy, these beings are privy to technology. But most people encounter aliens at night when they go to bed. You could be alone, you could be sleeping with a loved one, or you could be in a group. It doesn't matter. They have the technology where they can interface with you. They can come into your living areas and abduct you, and do all sorts of things. So that's been out there for many years. The spaceships, again, a lot of times people are seeing these spaceships when they're in the state of consciousness and dreaming. It's something, the aliens have something to do, and don't necessarily quote me on this, but this is from a lot of the research that I've done over the years. When a lot of people see these spaceships, they're in between a waking state and a dream state. They're in between consciousness and a dream state, that in between. And so that's why a lot of people believe that extraterrestrials are interdimensional, and then they're somehow interfacing with us. A lot of the spaceships that you're seeing, or even some people believe that there's a parallel to this earth. You see, we have this earth here, but there's also a metaphysical parallel, sort of like when you die, you go into the parallel universe. When you die, you cross over into the spirit realm. So it has to do with those, with intersecting with that. And I hope I'm explaining that really well, but I really didn't want to dwell on that. Let's just get right to it. We have to get into this Robert Kennedy Jr. Interview, and I was going to say assassination, and hopefully, guys, they don't assassinate him. And I will share my thoughts on the interview that he had with Tucker Carlson. But let's just get to some equities real quick, and let's get down to business, because I digress. It's your boy Jay. This is the Digital Revolution Podcast. Please like and subscribe to my podcast and get this information out there, guys. I am doing the best that I can to speak extemporaneously, and it is not easy. Yeah, so we're looking at Bitcoin right now, but let's just look at the S&P 500. Hopefully you guys can see this and you guys can hear me clearly. Yeah, so on the 4-hour chart, yeah, there's a sell-off going on. I wanted to show you guys this pattern here. Here's the trend here. On the daily chart, we have a golden cross where the Kijun-sen and the Tenkan-sen have crossed, and Chico span is touching the price. So this is consolidating for sure. However, we have the golden cross here where the Kijun-sen is crossing the Tinkin-sen, which means that the uptrend for the S&P 500 is over, and it's essentially in the day chart. And as we go into the lower time frames, we see here on, hopefully you guys can see this. Here, let me just move this out the way. As we go into the lower time frames on the 4-hour time frame, we see here again the overarching theme here is that the price action has fallen below its 52-day moving average. So we're seeing a sell-off here, a consolidation and a sell-off of the S&P 500. Again, full disclosure, I'm not in any of these markets, and I think these markets are bullshit. And I don't know when any of us will get back in these markets because these markets are bullshit. People like Charles Nanner is saying things like the market would have to come down. The market would have to crash, or it would have to make about a 60% correction in order for it to get back to 7%. To get back to 7%, to compound at 7%. But again, on the 1-hour chart here, we see that the price is completely below the cloud and that all indicators are pointing down. So we're seeing a sell-off in the S&P 500. And if I pull back here, and again, hopefully you guys are following me on this, and guys bear with me. And this is something that I'm learning to do, is to speak extemporaneously. And it is not as easy as it seems to get all these complicated subjects like the stock market and economies. It's like having a PhD almost. But anyway, so, and hopefully you guys are following me on this. So here, when we pull back on a monthly chart, we see that, yeah, the S&P 500 is heavily consolidated. It's in this trading range. And if you don't know how to, make money in a ranging stock market, then it's suggested that you stay away because you can really lose money. And it's not for the faint of heart. This trading range is for experienced traders. So a lot of people are losing money hand over fist in this money, but also people are gaining money in this market. But we're seeing here that the S&P 500 made a top on January 3rd of 2022. That was the historical top. And ever since then, we had here, it went below here to this price here, and the S&P 500 has gone up 29%. That's quite impressive. And we've almost gone to all-time highs. We're almost at all-time highs here. I mean, that's probably about 5% more to go to get to the all-time highs. But it's looking like that the S&P 500, and again, this is not financial advice, but it's looking like the S&P 500 could be the major top here, and then we have a bounce back here, and then we're going to see more sell-off here, and then we're going to hit another peak before it goes all the way down. Some people like Egon von Grers is saying 90% correction. Some people like Harry Dent is saying 90% correction. I'm not sure what Charles Nanner is saying. I think Charles Nanner is saying something like a 60% correction. And what's this guy's name? The guy that did The Big Short. Michael Saylor. Not Michael Saylor, but the guy that I at the moment I'm having a brain fart, but the guy that they made the movie about The Big Short, he just did some put options worth like $1 billion betting against the S&P 500. So there's a lot of different contradictory information, but it seems as though that it's more so on the side that the market is going to be cooling down and that we're going to be seeing possibly a major correction, at least a 35% correction, and then a bounce back before we go all the way down to another 35% correction. Again, it's your boy Jay. This is Digital Revolution Podcast. I hope you guys are following me on this podcast. For some reason, we are in Mercury retrograde, or we're in the beginning phase of Mercury retrograde. So it's like a lot of the information is hard to get out there. Communication is harder to get out there when you're in the Mercury retrograde. We're in the beginning phases of Mercury retrograde. Okay, hopefully you guys can hear this as well. So we have a consolidating S&P 500 with a sell-off, or this could be the beginning of a major sell-off in the S&P 500. And then here we have Here we have gold having a sell-off, and look at the price of gold. Damn, it has gone all the way down. Um, if we go to the lower time frames, we see a sell-off, kind of like a major sell-off of gold here. Yeah, so 4% here. We're seeing gold selling off. And again, if you guys have been following me, I've been saying that this was going to happen. So if you go back into some of my later posts that I'm talking about the price, and again, this is the derivative price of gold. These are just contracts. This is not the actual gold itself. These are contracts. So this is the spot price, and these are the contract prices, and it's fake gold. And banks heavily manipulate these stock market prices. But if you go back in my podcast, I was saying that we could see 1,600 gold before it goes to that $2,000 mark, before it goes above the $2,000 mark. So we're seeing a sell-off in the market, and hopefully you can see this here. NVIDIA has been pushing up the market. And I don't know if you guys follow me on my last podcast that was having a little bit of glitches with the audio, but I was saying that a lot of this, like a lot of these companies like NVIDIA, Tesla, Meta, and I'm just going to say allegedly, this is really drug money that is being laundered to these companies. This is really drug money that is being laundered into these companies and propping up these companies. And you have different shell companies, companies within companies, and that this drug money, this narcotics trafficking money goes into the stock market, and we could be seeing actually this drug money going in. Not only is the drug money going into the stock market, but also it's BlackRock trading for the Fed, and the Fed printing the money to keep up the markets. I don't want to get too deep into this market because we have a lot to cover in terms of Robert Kennedy Jr.'s interview, but I just wanted to give my introduction, and I wanted to give a little quick update on the stock market because that's what we do. Let's get right into it. So let's see here. So we're going to start here. We're not going to do the whole interview, but we're going to start here. Again, it's your boy Jay. This is Digital Revolution Podcast. Hopefully you guys can hear me and see this here. Okay. Okay, so I'm sharing my screen. Not sure if you guys could see this. So I'm going to stop sharing. Okay. Okay, so guys, bear with me. I just wanted to make this a little bit bigger here. So hopefully the screen is sharing, and yeah, we're going to get into this. Guys, this interview was amazing. This is what I actually logged on for, but this, guys, was amazing interview. I mean, Robert Kennedy Jr. is connecting so many dots. Again, I've been studying about the federal government and the government for over 7+ years. And this is one of the best. I mean, I've researched all kind of weird topics and all kind of fringe, professionals with PhDs and professors and political activists and economists and all kind of weird topics. But Robert Kennedy Jr., guys, this is why I would say that this interview is a historic interview because he is exposing so much of how these Illuminati groups and these New World Order groups and these central banks are moving. He really is exposing it and giving the public understanding of how this cartel, this cabal, this coup d'etat is really working. And if the public knows and understands how it's working, then the public can make informed decisions. So really, it's disclosure of how it's working that is going to change these events. And so I would say that this interview is historical, but let me stop blabbing and get to the interview, and hopefully you guys can hear this. Okay.
Launchers, Aegis missiles.
Hi everyone,
Okay,
Mark
so-
Barton here at SICK.
So yeah, it wants to get into some of these commercials. Guys, bear with me, and I'm just gonna skip this commercial here.
Made by Lockheed and can take Tomahawk missiles 12 minutes from Moscow. We could, in 12 minutes, decapitate the entire leadership of Russia. And we put those in Poland and Romania. And We then tried to move it into Ukraine, NATO into Ukraine. So you remember when my uncle, when Russia put missile systems, nuclear missile systems in Cuba, and my uncle would have had to invade. He was able. The reason Russia put them there then is because we had put nukes, Jupiter missiles, in Turkey and Italy. My uncle and father made a secret deal with Ambassador Dobrynin, where they said to him, "Look, we understand you're angry. You cannot live with Jupiter missiles in Turkey. That's why you put your missiles in Cuba. If you remove your missiles from Cuba within 6 months, we will remove ours from Turkey." But nobody says what the deal was. And that's what happened. So
It's just, hopefully you guys can hear this and you're seeing this so you can hear me, but guys, this is just crazy. What our government is doing, and I'm not saying everybody in the government is corrupt, but and as the interview goes on, I guess we will understand that, or we come to understand that. But again, I've been doing so much research on the government for the last 7+ years, and this interview really is connecting so many dots. A lot of the information is out there. Most of the information is out there, but you have to do some digging, and a lot of us have been connecting so many dots. So Robert Kennedy Jr. is talking about how United States military can destroy Russia in 12 fucking minutes. In 12 minutes. It's just unbelievable. It's so sad. It's so sad. How come nobody wants to fight for peace? Why none of these why does the current administration not want to fight for peace? We want everybody on this planet, from Russia to China, and all the people of those countries and all the people of this planet, and not necessarily the central banks and the cabal that's trying to run this planet to the ground and trying to depopulate, but everybody on this planet that has loved ones and that just wants to work. Nobody wants war. Simple as that.
we're back, and we've again put nuclear ready missile systems are along right next to Russia. And now we want to go do the one thing that Russia has said.
Crazy.
And Putin said again and again and again, this is a red line. Before Putin, the Russian leadership was saying it is a red line. You cannot go into Ukraine. The Russians have been invaded 3 times from you. Our country's never been invaded. The Russians were invaded 3 times through Ukraine. The last time they were invaded, Hitler killed between 20 and 40 million Russians. Hitler killed 1 out of every 7 Russians. And my uncle's...
Damn, 20 to 40 million Russians? God damn. It's like... the things that we do on this planet. And this is why I have a picture of the planet back here, because it's a way to objectify our behavior, and a way to be objective about human nature. And human nature is so flawed. We're literally destroying ourselves. We will literally destroy ourselves before we come together and love each other.
Speech to his most famous speech in American University in 1963. In July of 1963, he said to the American people, he said, we're all taught we won World War II, but we didn't win World War II. The Russians won it. And the sacrifice they made to destroy Hitler was beyond anything Americans can imagine. He was trying to tell the American people, you have to put ourselves in their position, understand what they're doing. And he said, a third of the country was leveled. Every city, the forests burned, the cities were leveled, the forests and fields burned.
Now, guys, I'm stopping right there. He says the forest and the fields were burned. He's correct me if I'm wrong, but he's dropping some gems right there. Guys, we just had one of the worst disasters in Maui and Hawaii. Let me rewind that, what he's saying. Like he's dropping some gems without necessarily pointing any fingers. And if you have eyes to see and ears to hear, that was a gem right there. That wasn't necessarily a subliminal message, but that was him dropping some gems, because we having those fires in Maui, and a lot of people are saying that is the G7 governments the G7 banks, possibly the Pentagon, and those corrupt organizations of the CIA and the DOD. And I'm just going to say this really quick about the Maui fires because I covered it in the last podcast. And again, forgive me for the audio quality in that podcast, but he's dropping gems. But I think essentially Hawaii was independent of the government, or something to the effect that Hawaii didn't really need the government, and that some of those contracts were expiring on the land, where the land was going to be turned over to the indigenous people or to the native people of Maui. And so the government stepped in there and did this land grab via directed energy weapons. And it's so poignant that he's pointing this out. And because if it was Russia or China, then we would definitely have a declaration of war. However, I believe, and many other people are saying this, it's not just me, it's not just conspiracy theories, but guys, people are waking up, and I'm so happy that people are waking up and connecting the dots, because that means that the tables are turning. But the people that control the central banks and the people that are controlling factions within the government will destroy the planet before they give up their power. Because essentially, as we learned through the Solari report through Catherine Austin Fitts, what is happening is that those central banks are able to print money out of thin air and buy up the world with money that they print out of thin air. And as we go further into World War III, because we're already in World War III, we're already in an asymmetric warfare, but actually World War III is being fought with the banks and with the central banks, with the Bank of International Settlements, and with the WEF, the World Economic Forum groups, and with all the factions within those groups that have overtaken or have usurped the government. And yeah, so it's with the CCCP party, the Communist Chinese Party, and with those central banks, both in Europe and also, or in the East, and also here in the United States. And so yeah, so he's dropping some gems about those forest fires. And again, guys, I hope I'm getting this information across. These are some, we live in biblical times, but I digress.
Imagine if that happened from the coast, the east coast of the United States, every city, forest, and field from here to Chicago. That's what the Russians put up with. So we have to understand this, that Ukraine is a red line. The invasion came through Ukraine, and they can't live with it. It's a security issue for them.
It's all coming out, and he is connecting so many dots right now. All of this has been coming out, but he's just connecting every dot.
Almost beyond our comprehension. And so, we've had.
So that suggests the point is war with Russia.
The point was war with Russia. And in fact, the neocons said that again and again, that and Biden, when he was and let me get back to that, okay? Because that is absolutely true.
Okay, so we're going to skip these commercials right now. YouTube and their commercials. I'm not mad at them though.
Biden, was first of all, in 2014, to go through the modern history, 2014, there are riots it's called the Maidan Rebellion in Ukraine, which we're not told that we were financing those riots. The newspapers never told us, our government never told us. USAID, which is a CIA front, put $5 billion into funding those riots. Those riots lead to a coup d'etat against the first democratically elected government of the Ukraine. It was a government that refused to choose sides and to say, we're going to be on the side of the West. So we wanted them out. A month before that government is overthrown, Victoria Nuland, who's the part of the centerpiece.
Oh, Victoria Nuland, she is fucking the one controlling the Biden administration. Allegedly, according to researcher Jim Whaley, who I absolutely love and cover a lot. And I did a review on him. And again, guys, sorry for the audio of the last, it's poor. Hopefully the audio came in okay, but that basically who is controlling the Joe Biden administration is Obama. I'm just going to say allegedly because you don't know what you can and cannot say, and Victoria Nuland. and he's going to get into this. And the other day, I came across this information, and Robert Kennedy Jr. Robert Kennedy, he is just kind of confirming what we already know, and therefore connecting all those dots. And the information that he's giving out there, he's risking his life for. Not only is he risking his life to declassify a lot of this information, because essentially he's declassifying all this information that's going on with the government, being completely transparent. And so, I think this is really going to empower people. But let's continue, because this is a lot.
Con ideology, and who is now a high-level official in the State Department, has a secret call with the U.S. ambassador, which is tape recorded and is now public, which anybody can go and look up, where she is picking the new cabinet for Ukraine, which is
motherfuckers. These motherfuckers are treasonous. And by no means am I saying that people should use violence, but ultimately, if you do fuck shit like this, and particularly to the United States public, to the patriots, guys, these people are gonna have to leave the country. They're gonna go in hiding. And that's why you hear all these conspiracy theories about that's not the real Joe Biden, that's a clone, that's some sort of proxy, that's some sort of actor wearing one of those Mission Impossible masks, because these people have a mark out for their life. There are going to be people that are going to understand this or have been understanding this, and those people how are those people that are running the Biden administration going to show their face? The next phase of this is going to be people just going crazy over this. They're going to be looking for them, if they're not already looking for them. And that gets deeper into sort of the predictive programming, if you guys are following me on this, and I hope you guys are following me. That gets deeper into the predictive programming as people are imbibing this information, as people are digesting this information, and so many of us are connecting the dots, and they're waking up to what this administration or what this government has been doing since forever, since the 90s. They've been stealing the money from HUD and from DOD. Where's the $21 trillion? But as people wake up to this, they're gonna start knocking on those politicians' doors. They're gonna start asking questions and looking for them. By no means am I saying to do that. We should do this peacefully and do it in a court of law. But however, that's what a lot of people are going to end up doing. You do some fuck shit, some fuck shit is gonna be done to you. Karma is going to be served, but ultimately it might be too late, and that ties into things that are happening in Hawaii and Maui. It's like, okay, if you guys want to protest and you guys want to come after the people that run the central bank or the middle managers of the central banks, like the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers and all the other middle managers that are down with the World Economic Forum, then this is what we're going to do to you. We're going to just fucking burn up your cities. We're going to burn up your land. We're going to take your land. Guys, the patriots are going to be coming after these people, and he's putting his life at risk. But anyways, let's continue on.
It's a U.S. Western cabinet, so they're picking the new government a month before the old government is overthrown.
Is that how democracy when Victoria Nuland picked the government?
Well, that's the point. Is USAID doesn't really do, and the CIA don't do democracy. The CIA has overthrown, I think, 83 governments between 1947 and 1997. That's a third of the governments on Earth, and most of them were democracies. Oh, it doesn't do democracy. It does good. It does. So then, to put the rest of this history, and we put in a Western government. Everybody says, well, the Russians started this by invading Crimea. But put yourself in Putin's position. And I'm not an apologist for Putin, by the way. He went into Ukraine. It was illegal. My son went over there and fought against it, and risked his life in the Kharkiv rebellion. I'm not making excuses for him. What he did was brutal. It was illegal and it was unnecessary. But we have to understand our role in the provocations. And so.
And what I'm seeing from just boots on the ground is that a lot of people, and Robert Kennedy is going to get deeper into this in the interview. And guys, he's connecting so many dots. Damn, bless him for that. Bless his soul for that. But what I'm seeing with the boots on the ground information is that a lot of people from Russia are coming here to the United States. A lot of people from Ukraine are migrating here to the United States. And I've talked to some of those people, and they do have some criticism about Russia. So there is propaganda on both sides. There's propaganda on the Russian side, and there's propaganda on the United States side. But what he's saying is that Putin, he went into Ukraine, and a lot of Russians criticize, a lot of Russians and Ukrainians criticize Putin for this. But I think that he kind of ties it all in. So let's just continue to hear what he says.
You're in Putin's position. Now you're looking at Ukraine, and Ukraine is being run by a pro-US government.
Right. A lot of people.
What's the
criticize
first thing
Putin.
he thinks? They're going to take Vladivostok, which is the port in the Crimea on the Black Sea, which has been a Russian port, their only warm water port for 347 years. It's where the Russian Navy is, their sub base, it's everything else. And he says, now this new government is going to invite the US Navy in to take over our facilities. We got to go in there and take it back. So he goes into Crimea. He goes in and takes Crimea without firing a shot or killing a single person. The Crimean population is largely Russian, and they welcome the invasion. So, again, I'm not making excuses for him, but I'm saying we have to understand. My uncle always said we have to understand the position of our adversaries, and what forces are they dealing with. So then.
Okay, so again, because we don't want to be here all day, I'm gonna skip to the part where he's talking about BlackRock. Guys, please like and subscribe, get this information out there. You can just Google or go on Rumble and look up Tucker Carlson's interview with Robert Kennedy Jr., who is running for president. And I think he's gonna get a lot of the votes. And it's good that we have people like Trump and him that are going against these people. So hopefully one of the two will win. But yeah, so let me see if I can. Fucking commercials. Sorry about that, guys. So yeah, so just let this commercial pass real quick, and sorry about that, guys. But he's
MSNBC never do this. But if you go look at those guys, they're all people who are working for Raytheon and General Dynamics and Boeing and Lockheed. So they're generals, but they're not identified that, they're.
I just wanted to say that in my last podcast, I was talking about how JP Morgan Chase basically is the government, that JP Morgan Chase owns about 35% of the central bank, which is tied to the mother bank, which is the Bank of International Settlements. So essentially, JP Morgan Chase is the government, and the private defense contractors runs all the computer software. For instance, if you get welfare, if you're getting Social Security, if you're getting EBT, and you go to those government facilities, and they are keeping track on their computer databases, they're running it through the private defense contractor. So you have JP Morgan Chase acting as the government itself, and then you have the private defense contractors that are running the whole operations.
Actually working for the military contractors who are cashing in on the war. And then, those military contractors in turn are owned by three companies. All of them are owned by three companies, by BlackRock, State Street, and Vanguard. And
the big three. Damn, that is fucking crazy. BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street. I mean, not a surprise, but this is sort of like, again, another document. He's dropping gems. Guys, he's dropping gems. And again, I think that these people are going to be exposed so much. It's going to be so much information about them that is being exposed, that when all the arrests happen, because these people essentially are committing treason and all the information is being exposed and they're running for their life, they're going to shut the power out. And maybe this is why, and I'm just going to say allegedly because I don't want to get my channel shut down. So allegedly, this is why they're doing stuff like they're doing in Hawaii and in Maui. It's like, okay, well, you're going to find out all the secrets are being exposed about what's really going on with the government and the private defense contractors. And, their ability to print money is slowly going away as per the BRICS and the de-dollarization. And about 85% of those countries are going now against the United States. So you have the de-dollarization process, so they won't be able to print money anymore. So they're like, okay, well, You think we're going to give up power? We're going to end up destroying this planet if they give up power. But again, so he's saying that those military defense contractors that are in Ukraine and along with the NATO that are fighting Russia to try to overthrow Russia, that the private defense contractors are getting the kickback. And BlackRock, State Street, and Vanguard, no surprise there at all, but he's confirming it, are involved in this.
You know, the inflation that from printing the money
Exactly.
to fund the war, to fund the 16 trillion we spent to fund the lot.
Treasonous. That's treasonous. These people that are committing these crimes, they're going to pay. It's going to be divine retribution for them, what they're doing on planet Earth. It's going to be divine retribution for anybody, you know? So that's why we got to get right with God.
And the COVID lockdowns, 8 trillion we've spent on these wars since 2020, all of them losing wars, all of them have made our country less safe. Look at what this war is doing. We have pushed Russia into the embrace of China, which is the worst foreign policy outcome imaginable. It is not good for national security.
I'm watching this interview. I'm like, agree. I agree with him, with Robert Kennedy Jr. 100%. It is hard to disagree with somebody when they're being honest, which some of these politicians can't do because they're all bought and paid for by the central banks. And Congress is in on it. Nancy Pelosi is in on it. Victoria Nuland is in on it. Obama allegedly is in on it because he was brought in by the Rothschild banks and he bailed out the banks. The Bushes is in on it. Clinton is in on it. They are the neocons. Okay, so I digress, but
our country, and we now have Putin's back to the wall. Well, Putin is the world's leading nuclear superpower. We aren't. He's got 1,000 more nukes than we do, and their nukes are much.
So these motherfuckers are willing to take us to nuclear war. This administration and these Illuminati groups and these New World Order groups are willing to destroy us in terms of to kill like two birds with one stone. Overthrow Russia, deplete Russian supplies because it's a superpower, and they want the strategic resources. You know, because Russia has about 74 to 75% of all the natural resources that it supplies to Europe. It is a strategic landmass in terms of resources that those Illuminati groups want to have. But let's go.
Better than ours. They can shoot down our nukes. We can't shoot down theirs. Oh, you know, we are going up against we are provoking a confrontation that could very easily lead to nuclear war. You know, and I've talked to.
Hey, can I ask you to pause here for a second? Yeah. Everything you've said is checkable.
Okay. So again, we're just gonna fly right through this. Hopefully you guys will follow me. It's your boy Jay. This is Digital Revolution Podcast, and we're just doing a nightcap and a review. Please like and subscribe to my channel if you like the information that I'm kicking to you. And this is what I do. This is what we do, is we make commentaries on alt media and just gather all the information on alt media and all the intel and connect dots. But let's see here. Let's skip because we don't want to be here all day. Okay, so heavy with the commercials. I don't put that on there like that.
Go through what happened in Iraq. Just for give me 1 minute to summarize we were tricked into Iraq by the neocons, who told us that Saddam, who had something to do with the World Trade Center, which was a lie, that he had planted the anthrax attacks that came 5 days.
Well, we now know that what was happening from people like the Soler report, from the reports on the Soler report, the independent reports on the Soler report, that 9/11 had the Twin Towers had all the gold in it, and essentially it was a bank, and it was one of the biggest bank runs in the history of time, and that only a few of the private defense contractors can bring down that building. Some people say that those same private defense contractors, because there's only a few in the world, there's only a handful in the world that can actually take down a building like that, because essentially the buildings were vaporized or powderized. But the World Trade Center, along with Building 7, Solomon Building, and the Pentagon, had all the information to the $21 trillion missing money. It was the biggest heist. Not only did they take the gold, but they were able to destroy all the hard copy, all the documentation to the $21 trillion that's missing from the federal government that cannot be accounted for. That $21 trillion, it went to the Bank of International Settlements and it gained interest to fund Black budget projects. Essentially what the federal government is doing, like the Pentagon, CIA, and the Department of Defense and Department of Justice, essentially the whole federal government, along with the central banks, is with that $21 trillion that they brought over to the Bank of International Settlements in Switzerland, the mother bank, they accrued interest on it of $21 trillion. And essentially what they did with that money is they privatized space, putting satellites in outer space, and they built underground bunkers. So when we see the things that's happening in Maui and all this weather modification and all this strange weather, and again, with the fires in Maui and the technology to bring down the Twin Towers, that's where your taxpayer money is going. And I'm going to say allegedly because I don't want to get kicked off of my channel. So I'm just going to say allegedly, but this is from the research that I've done. And that's what it showed me, that the $21 trillion, the documents was in the World Trade Center and the Pentagon and in the Solomon Brother in building number 7. And that what the government did with the money was they privatized space and to build the underground bunkers. And that's where those conspiracy theories of, that they have offshore bank havens on other worlds, there's other colonies off the planet, because you cannot understand the economy unless you understand the Black budget, unless you understand this this off-world colony Black budget that the government is doing. What is the government building with all this money? I think in 2014 the estimate was 21 trillion, but now in 2023 it could be anywhere from like $50 trillion that's missing from the federal government. So essentially the government owes everybody about $100,000 per person. But anyways, I digress. Again, it's your boy Jay. This is Digital Revolution Podcast. Let's get it on and popping. God bless Robert Kennedy Jr. He is dropping gems, guys. Let's continue.
After the World Trade Center, which was a lie, that turned out to be, the intelligence agencies and the U.S. military at Fort Detrick. That anthrax
Exactly.
the FBI found came from Fort Detrick. So it was somebody in the U.S. government who sent it to
Treasonous.
Patrick Leahy and Tom Daschle, who were the two senators in the week after 9/11 who were trying to block the Patriot Act. And it shut down Congress and the Patriot.
And this is what we pay our taxes for. This is what we're paying our taxes for. And I think everybody should, pay their taxes and give onto Caesar what is due to Caesar, as they say. But I'm curious to know what Robert Kennedy Jr. stance is on the IRS and on taxes. If all of our taxpayer money is being stolen and all of our purchasing power is being eroded. But essentially what is happening is our taxpayer money is funding these Black budget government projects, which is in a sense meant to depopulate. So we're funding something that it's killing us. But anyways, I digress.
Not going through. And
Allegedly.
so and then they told us,
Wait. Really?
yeah, yes. And the FBI, after a year of investigation, traced the anthrax. It was a kind of Ames anthrax that was weaponized. And the only source of that in the world could be the U.S. government. And they traced it to Fort Detrick.
Right, because there's only but so many companies in the world of private defense contractors in the world that can create these type of weapons. So, if the shoe fit, where is it? If it looks like a tree, smells like a tree, barks like a tree, or what is it? If it looks like a duck, smells like a duck, walks like a duck, then it's probably a duck.
Yes, the biolab at Fort Detrick, the CIA biolab at Fort Detrick. Oh, somebody.
And none of the stuff that he's saying is it's not a surprise. It shouldn't be a surprise to anybody. However, he's connecting a lot of dots, which is the power to it. God bless him.
That
God bless
at
him
the
for
time
that.
the Patriot Act was being debated, and
God
the
bless
two
him.
leading guys who were blocking it was Patrick Leahy and Tom Daschle were the recipients of it. It shut down Congress. The Patriot Act goes through. And what does the Patriot Act do? Two things. I mean, it basically gets rid of a large part of the United States Constitution and Bill of Rights and allows spying by intelligence agencies on the American people. And it reopened.
Speaking of spying on the intelligence agency spying on people, there is some of the research that I'm doing and some of the intel that I've gathered on this topic is that allegedly that those intelligence agencies have a machine that basically listens to everything. It listens to everything on your phone. That there's technology on your phone that you think something and the phone can sense that, and then in turn you think it, and then the algorithms will give you a commercial for whatever you're thinking. So they have been able to create neural networks to monitor our thinking and algorithms to somehow get into our thoughts and get into our dreams and get into our subconscious mind. But yeah. Anyways, I digress.
It's the bioweapons arm.
Oh, but yeah, what I was gonna say about the because I totally was getting off topic, but yeah, so some of the intel that I got was that they can listen to everything you type, everything you say, everything is being monitored. It's not being monitored by people, it's being monitored by algorithms, and it gets processed into a huge computer. And this is how they're able to predict the future. BlackRock has the technology, and other private companies have this predictive programming technology where it's gathering massive amounts of data. Like everything I'm saying now is being put into that data. Everything you're saying, everything that we're doing is every keystroke, everything is being put into that database, and it's being mined through these high frequency computers, through these algorithms, and they're able to predict the future based off of language and languages, excuse me. But anyways, I digress. It's your boy Jay. This is a Digital Revolution podcast. I hope you guys are following me. Sorry if I'm a little scatterbrained. It's just so much going on right now. Hopefully I'm conveying this information out there. There's a lot to delve into, but I don't want to make this too long.
It's because bioweapons were shut down in 1969 by we saw, Nixon did this incredible thing of closing Fort Detrick, shutting them down, and saying we're no longer making bioweapons, and then got everybody to sign a treaty in 73. Well, to ban bioweapons. The Patriot Act has a provision in it that says we're not walking away from the Geneva Convention, which
they will hang. You can get hanged.
Offense to develop bioweapons. We're not walking away from the Bioweapons Charter of 1972, 1973. But we are adopting a new rule that any federal official who violates those acts cannot be prosecuted. So it reopened, it effectively got rid of
a crime without a punishment.
Immunized.
Yeah, but anyway.
Immunity from crime.
Anyway, I forgot where we.
So let me add, it's an interesting segue because Toria Nuland kind of blithely announced during congressional testimony last year that, oh, by the way, we have these biolabs in Ukraine.
Yeah.
And that was like kind of.
What the fuck, yo? Just like I said, this government is out of control. And as more people wake up, those people that are in power, they're going to be running for their life once people really realize. And this is probably just the tip of the iceberg. He's connecting a lot of dots, but there's probably way more to this information. He's essentially declassifying a lot of information, up to the minute, up to date information about what's going on. He's informing the public, and he's risking his life for that. So I applaud him for that. I applaud him for this. And it's looking like he's going to get a lot of our votes. God bless him for that.
Nor did the people who covered it got attacked for covering it. But the fact remains,
because these people that are controlling everything, they don't give a fuck about our country. They don't give a shit about us.
U.S. biolabs in Ukraine. Why would we have biolabs in Ukraine?
We have biolabs in Ukraine because we're developing bioweapons, and and those bioweapons are using all kinds of new synthetic biology and CRISPR technology and genetic engineering techniques that were not available to previous generation, and they can make frightening stuff. What happened was, when we walked away from, when the Patriot Act reopened the bioweapons arms race in 2001, the Pentagon began putting a lot of money into bioweapons, but they were nervous at that time because if you violate the Geneva Convention, it's a hanging offense. And they weren't sure that provision in the Patriot Act would actually hold up as a loophole to treaties that had been ratified by Congress. So they were nervous about actually going full force into bioweapons development. So they transferred the authority for biosecurity to one agency in the HHS called the National Institute for Infectious and Allergic Diseases, run by Anthony Fauci. So Anthony Fauci got all the
Yeah,
responsibility.
he's down with them. Anthony Fauci is down with the WEF and with the Mother Bank. He's definitely down with them. He wrote a whole book. Robert Kennedy Jr. wrote a whole book on him. Again, God bless him. Guys, it's making me emotional thinking about this, what they're doing to my country, what they're doing to our country. If you grew up in this country and you stand for what we have values for freedom and liberty, then this should make you emotional too, that these people are doing this to our families, to our loved ones, to our friends. People are becoming homeless. People are losing their mind. People are losing their job. People are losing their sanity. People are losing their faith. People are losing their love. Families are being torn apart over this shit. We're going to war over this. We're dealing with a biblical prophecy coming to fruition, coming to light. And it's sort of like one of those things where, yeah, we have the information and the knowledge about the biblical prophecies. However, maybe we were given those prophecies just like when you have a dream, you have a prophetic dream, or you have intuition. By being able to understand and having that intuition, you're able to change the course of events. You're able to change history itself because you were given foreknowledge of that. And in the end times, you would not be able to buy or sell without the mark of the beast. And so a lot of those prophecies is coming to fruition. And maybe some people say that those groups are trying to fulfill those prophecies.
For bioweapons development. He got at that time a 68% raise from the Pentagon in order to do that work. So, and that's why he was the highest paid official in the American government of 4 million people in the American. He gets more money. He got more money, $450,000 a year than the president. That any Supreme Court judge, any member of Congress, he was the highest paid, and it's because he got that 68% raise from the Pentagon to do bioweapons development. Now, when you do bioweapons development, every bioweapon needs a vaccine. So you develop them side by side because in 100% of the cases, when you deploy a bioweapon, there's blowback. Your side also gets sick.
Of course.
So in order to deploy one offensively, you need a vaccine too.
He's dropping gems, guys, gems. This is essentially him declassifying the government, the people that are behind all of this. He's declassifying this information, and he is informing the public and
to counter. So you need to vaccinate your team before you deploy it. So those two things are developed through a field of science called gain of function science, where you take an infectious microbe and you amplify its infectivity, or you make it jump species, so it may kill monkeys. Now you make it kill humans, and you adopt it that way. And there's all kinds of methods, and then you make it immune to antibiotics and to therapeutic drugs and to other therapies. So it's actually the inverse of medicine. For 2,800 years since Hippocrates, doctors have been trying to figure out how to make microbes less infectious and less deadly and develop antibiotics and therapeutics to do that. Well, the guys who are involved in this, there's 36,000 what are called life scientists, but they're actually death scientists who are now employed full-time in developing, microbes that can be used to kill people.
But given the experience we just had 3 years ago,
Yeah.
where a virus from a biolab upturned.
So let me just finish this brief history about what happened. In 2014, 3 of those microbes escaped. Fauci built labs all over the country, in Galveston and Boston, everywhere. They're BSL-4 labs. We don't even know how many there are, BSL-3 and BSL-4. We have no idea how many there are. There's, we've counted them. I have a new book coming out that goes through the ones we know, but there are many secret ones that people don't know about, and they're doing it here in the United States. But in 2014, 3 bugs escaped from 3 different labs. And they were high-profile breaks, and they were very dangerous things, smallpox and a couple of other bad microbes. The public learned about it, and there was a lot of publicity, and Congress held hearings. 300 scientists wrote President Obama and said, you've got to shut down Anthony Fauci because he's going to create a microbe that will cause a global pandemic.
And where's Anthony Fauci now? Have you heard from him? Have you heard from Nancy Pelosi? Where are these people now? You don't hear nothing about Anthony Fauci. That motherfucker, if he knew it was good for him, he'd be on the run because the Patriots going to come after him. People are going to come after him.
Obama signed a moratorium that shut down the 18 worst of Anthony
Well, at least he did that.
Experiments, where most of them were taking place in Galveston and in North Carolina by a scientist called Ralph Barrick down there. And instead of obeying that law, Anthony Fauci shifted a lot of his operations offshore. And those operations ended up, most of them in the Wuhan lab, which is a military lab, and that the Chinese run, the People's Liberation Army. And then a lot of them went to the Ukraine. So a lot of that science now, and it's funded, Fauci was funding lots of it. But then the other government agencies began to get confidence in, their ability to get away with it. And most of it is being funded by the Department of Defense. Most of all, the biggest single funder is USA.
Department of Defense, that would be the DOD. And again, they are implicit in the stolen money. The Department of Defense and HUD with mortgage security fraud, and DOD with the missing money. At first, it was $700 billion, and then it's now anywhere from $21 trillion from 2014, and now in 2023, it's something like 50 plus trillion dollars that's missing from the federal government, and it all goes back to the Department of Defense. Guys, what the fuck are our taxpayer money doing? Funding this shit. It's funding this. It's crazy. And I'm not telling people to do this, but I can foresee a lot of people just totally not paying their taxes. And I'm not saying that you should do that. You should give to Caesar what is due to Caesar. But a lot of people are going to end up not wanting to pay their taxes because essentially there can be no taxation without fair and equal representation. And the government is not representing its people at the moment. So we'll have to see about that. I'm very curious to see all of their stances, all the presidential candidates' stances on the IRS and taxation.
Which is, a CIA cutout.
Do you think the lab leak was a leak or was it intentional?
Well, the best science shows that it indicates that the people who were working on a particular coronavirus technology that was taught by Ralph Barrick, it was developed by the U.S. government with NIH money. It was then taught to a group of scientists, Xi Zhengli, who's famous as the Bat Lady, and then her assistant, Ben Hu, and a couple of other scientists at the Wuhan lab. Barrick taught them two things. He taught them, one, how to engineer the spike with a furin cleave that could attach to the ACE2 receptors of the human lungs and make people sick and spread, through the air. Horrible. He taught them another trick that has nothing to do with public health, conceivably, which is a technique called seamless ligation, which is a technique for disguising the evidence of human tampering. So you can make the microbe, and then you.
We live in a very complicated and complex world. The world has become so complicated, and this is human beings doing this to other human beings. This is human beings. Maybe they're not human, because why would any human being do this to another human being? Don't you have a family? Don't you have friends? Don't you have loved ones? Are you just doing it for the money? It's just unspeakable. My God have mercy on all of us, because humanity is fucked up. We make each other's lives so complicated while we're here on planet Earth. We really do, guys. Really do.
Erase the evidence that human beings actually made that microbe. And Ben Hu was leading that research. Ben Hu then got sick with two other of his fellow researchers,
Right.
and they ended up in the hospital with COVID symptoms in November of 2019. So it appears that Ben Hu, and then Ben Hu, the subway line that goes past the Wuhan lab and goes straight to the airport, all the original cases were along that subway line. And so the intelligence agencies that are actually being honest about that, and most of them are not.
Damn, he is dropping gems, guys. These are gems. Later on in the interview, I think he says that nobody knows for sure, but this is so strange what he's saying, because what does this remind you of? It reminds me of Resident Evil. It reminds me of the first Resident Evil movie, where it's essentially the same story. But when did Resident Evil come out? I forget exactly when the first one came out, but that was a while back. That was before 2000 was it 2007? Before the subprime mortgage crisis happened? I forget exactly when Resident Evil happened, but guys, Hollywood knows about this stuff. Hollywood knows about this stuff, and they put predictive programming into the movies because, again, who owns the movies? BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street. Who and these banks? Who's funding these blocks of movies? They have blocks of movies that they fund, and they don't really make a lot of money on the movies. They actually lose a lot of the money on the movies because of counterfeiting and bootlegging. But they will make up their money with the big box office hits. And I don't mean to digress, but this sounds exactly like the movie Resident Evil. It's like life imitating art, art imitating life. However, a lot of the things that you see in television and media is predictive programming. They have to tell you what they're going to do before they do it. And that's what makes the Resident Evil franchise so spooky and scary. And I just don't want to fuck with it right now. But
believe that Ben Hu and two other researchers got sick that the most likely scenario is that Ben Hu and two other researchers who were working on infectious coronavirus bioweapons got sick and they didn't know it. And so they were riding that subway line every day and infecting people before they actually got symptoms.
damn.
And that's probably what happened, but nobody knows.
Like
You've
you said,
said
nobody knows. Nobody knows. Okay, anyways, I digress. And let's just skip now to here. Hopefully it doesn't go to a commercial. Guys, it's your boy Jay. This is Digital Revolution Podcast. Sorry if this interview is going a little bit long, but I had to cover all of this. Please check out Tucker Carlson. I don't necessarily subscribe to Tucker Carlson. I don't really watch him, but this was a groundbreaking interview. I think this is probably one of his best interviews ever. I don't really sit there and watch him like that because you can find way better sources of information about what's really going on. But this is one of his better interviews because people are hungry for intel. They're hungry for information. They're hungry for the truth. And so, yeah, let's see what he has to say.
it's within our government. Like, how do you, the last president, when was the last president who controlled the agencies? And how would you do?
I don't know. I feel like I'm probably, and I don't want to seem like, I'm being vain, but I feel that because of the confluence of my experiences over the past 40 years, that I'm actually probably the only one that can unravel that agency capture. And let me tell you that.
He asked him a question about how are you going to dismantle the CIA? Because we're having essentially America is having all these problems with these intelligence agencies and with these federal government, bureaucracies and with the central banks. So Tucker asked him, how are you going to dismantle the CIA?
Daughter-in-law, who is co-running my campaign with Dennis Kucinich, Amaryllis Fox, was a CIA agent in the clandestine service for most of her career. And what she'll tell you, and she has a very sanguine view of the CIA, and the same as mine, and also understands all this evidence that the agency.
I can't believe he even comes out as a public figure such as himself. I can't even believe he talks like this. No other candidate is talking like this. Trump does talk like this, but I think Trump has to talk more so in what's the word? Sort of like metaphor. You know, he can't just come out and say it. But this is one of the only presidential candidates that is actually coming out and just telling you what it is, and people need that more than anything. Not saying Trump doesn't do the same thing, because Trump does drop gems as well. Okay, don't get it
was
twisted.
involved in the murder of my uncle and the cover-up, continues to be involved in the cover-up. But what Amaryllis will tell you is that of the 24,000 people who work for the agency, that 20,000 of them are patriotic Americans and good public servants. And
Well, that's like they say that there's good and bad in every organization, every institution. And that's why I always say it's not that we don't like the government, because, you know, to some extent we do need the government. The government is there to help the people. However, that there have been factions that have overtaken the government, and bad players in the government, just like there's bad players in any corporation. There's night and day to any corporation, to any organization or institution. There's good and bad in any organization.
there's some people, mainly in a plants division. The espionage division, the CIA, is made up of extraordinary people, principally who are doing an important job of protecting our country. The espionage division is the division that does information gathering and analysis, and the president needs that. The plans division is the action division. They're the ones.
And I was just talking about how they have supercomputers that listen to everything everybody is saying. Everything. They can see into your home. You know, they have equipment that can detect, that can scan your whole entire house in real time. From some of the research and the intel that I'm getting, they listen to everything that everybody's saying. It's not human beings, it's computers that are listening to everything that we're saying, and it's getting fed, that data is getting fed into those supercomputers, and it's being quantified and used to predict the future through our language.
Assassinate people, fix elections, overthrow governments, and do all the things that I think we're paying for in our foreign policy today and in our domestic policy. My father was going to separate those two divisions. My uncle ultimately was going to do that. And my uncle thought the CIA, he came out of his office during the Bay of Pigs and he said, I want to take the CIA, shatter it into 1,000 pieces and scatter it to the winds. He then asked my father to run the agency. He said, you're the only one I trust to do this. And my father said it, and my grandfather said, you can't do that. You can't, it would be like Molotov and Stalin. You can't have the brother of the president running a secret spy agency with all this extraordinarily hidden power. So they brought in John McComb to run it. But
Okay, so I'm going to skip that part. And guys, please check out Tucker Carlson's interview. You can just type it on YouTube or Rumble. Let's just get into this part here. Again, it's your boy Jay. This is the Revolution Podcast. Please like and subscribe, and hopefully I'm getting this information across. So yeah, like there's just a lot of gems being dropped here, and I hope you guys are following me here. We're almost finished here.
The Peruvian family that I met.
Oh yeah, so I skipped to the part where he's talking about the border because we're having so many issues with the border. I thought this interview was just amazing. This was a 10 tens across the board. I agree with everything he said, and then some. I think he is turning out to be one of the strongest presidential candidates that we have. But thank God we have both. I'm getting emotional, man. I'm getting emotional about this. Thank God that we have two people that want something good for the United States, because this other guy, this Biden administration has got to go. It's basura. It's garbage. Okay. Yeah, so he's talking about immigration, and then we'll end it on that.
Every penny taken from him. He said, my whole life savings was taken from me. There's a tree that we could see from where we were when it was daylight. It's called the rape tree, where the cartels extract final payment from women who are crossing the border. If there are attractive women that they, in their view, and I don't mean physically attractive, but attractive for whatever their purpose is, to sell or to traffic or whatever, or children. Those children are separated out. We the Colombian family had lost a child girl and a teenage girl. And, the father was desperate, and she had been separated from them by the cartels before they passed.
Oh my gosh.
And 85,000 children have disappeared in this process. It's monstrous.
So
but then
One of the things that you never hear about, and one of the things that if you go deeper into these theories or conspiracy theories, whatever you want to call them, and some of the intel that a lot of the Patriots is getting is that there are underground tunnels. For instance, there's an underground tunnel that connects Virginia all the way to California, that there are hundreds and thousands of miles of tunnels that are connecting all these key points, that there are tunnels all the way from the US to Antarctica that go underground that you're not hearing about. There's a whole black market economy that's happening underground there. Essentially, the asymmetric war or World War III is being fought underground. But the black market, with the child trafficking, and then the underground bases. And again, this is what I'm saying. This is why I connect all the dots, because it goes back to that $21 trillion and what we learned from Catherine Austin Fitts and from the Solera report and from people like Mark Skidmore, about the missing money and what the government actually did. And then you hear stuff like this, and then you start gathering all this intel. And so, yeah, you don't really hear anybody talking about that there's hundreds and thousands of miles of tunnels that are connecting the underground, and a lot of the child trafficking is happening. And again, you can't even understand how the banking system, the modern banking system works unless you factor into that child trafficking, money laundering, and narcotics.
I'll tell you this, they get into our country, and there's a lot of people who are well-meaning, mainly liberal people who care, who see themselves as deeply caring people, who say we should have sanctuary cities, and we should, these people should be treated with dignity. But what really happens to them in real life is that they get here, and then they, for 7 years, none of them are legal. So they are now subject to terrible exploitation by unscrupulous employers all over this country. They're getting paid $6 or $5 an hour because they have no leverage in their employer. Of course. And that dampens the wages for every other American.
That's exactly right. It steals the leverage from American workers too.
And there's 16 million of them here now. And they're crushing the social safety system, social safety nets in cities like New York has 95,000 of them landed in there.
So listen, New York is very liberal, very socialist, very communist, very corrupt, and it's becoming more communist and more corrupt because as inflation kicks up, and this is true across the United States and across the world, where they're trying to get us more into a socialist system, because as food prices go up and the cost of living goes up, people are being priced out of the market. Therefore, they have no other choice but to be co-opted into the government system, but to surrender to the coup d'etat of the government. And the government is not your friend, it's your enemy. As you can see here, that you have all these factions that are trying to depopulate and go against the public for the people that are controlling within the government, that are controlling it for their own self-interest and taxing them at the same time.
New York is now thinking of turning Roosevelt Island into an open-air refugee camp.
Oh, baby, when he said that, oof, baby, that was like, hell fucking no. Hell fucking no. They want to turn Roosevelt Island into an open-air refugee camp. What the fuck? And then they're gonna tax people to death. I got some intel, boots on the ground intel, from a worker at a Duane Reade in New York City, and she said that, because basically the blue states are becoming sort of like safe havens, or basically like a safe haven for the immigrants, and that when they come here, they get housing and hotels, and probably that will go into long-term housing, and they get about $2,000 worth of food stamps. Meanwhile, people that actually live here, that are indigenous here, are getting their food stamps benefits cut.
And there's a proposal that was on Bloomberg of turning Central Park or parts of it into open air camps for
That is unbelievable. That is treasonous. Cease and desist. They need to cease and desist, guys. We need to do something about this government. You know, lawfully and legally, and nothing illegal. They need to be brought to court. Those people that have done wrong in the court of law, they need to be brought to justice. But unfortunately, I think people are going to start taking matters into their own hands. I'm not suggesting that at all.
for migrants. Oh, and that, Eric Adams, who's the mayor, has been saying this has got to end. We have to close the border. And a lot of these mayors who were people who were saying we're sanctuary cities and getting that, aligning themselves with that, are now seeing what it really means, and it does not mean treating people humanely.
Well, also too, like places in New York City and California, they make them sanctuary cities because the states are broke. They're getting the kickbacks from the federal government. And so this is sort of like a depopulation, destabilization of the United States. And one of the things that's happening is that, not to digress, but as you mix those immigrant populations into the United States, and it's not just, Mexicans and Latin America, it's people from all over the world coming into the United States. They start to assimilate and mix into the indigenous population. So yeah, and again, it's not that we're racist, because we love everybody and we have compassion for everybody. But I think that the United States needs to figure its own problems before we invite other people with their problems. We need to figure out our own problems. Again, our own problems. Let's figure out our own problems before we invite other people with their problems, because their problems is going to become our problems. So it's like an infestation of illegal immigrants, of illegal immigration.
The worst possible thing we can do. Meanwhile, 7 million have come across in 3 years, 7 million illegally. In that same time, there's only been,
I heard it's something like 30 million came across the border of Texas, 30 million illegal immigrants. So who knows how many really is coming, but I know that they're here, they're coming.
0.1 million legal immigrants. So these are the people who waited in line. For every one of them, there are more than 2 illegal ones coming across and taking those places. And that, a lot of the anyway, that it's not something that's sustainable. It's something that needs to end right away. And the cartels which are making billions, the Mexican drug cartels, are literally running U.S. immigration policy.
Right, because the United States federal government, I'm just going to say allegedly, is getting kickbacks. They're doing deals with the Mexican cartels in exchange for money, because as our currency debases, nobody wants our money. They're having issues at the Treasury auctions trying to sell their bonds and try to sell their bills and their Treasury notes. No other country wants them. The United States government is bankrupt. The banks are bankrupting, so they need this. They need this immigration to come in here, because they're getting the money from the cartels, because they're broke. How else are they going to fund the pensions, the government pensions, and the military pensions?
That's not the president of the United States.
And corrupting the Southwest United States.
Right, it's corrupting. You can say that again.
Question: will you succeed in getting a debate with Biden, do you think?
Okay, so anyways, I digress. Let me stop sharing. And it's your boy Jay. This is a Revolution podcast. The revolution will not be televised, guys. I hope you stay with me all the way to the end. If you did, then you are my ride or die. You're a G. Okay, guys. Sorry if I was just scatterbrained, or if I've been scatterbrained lately. But thank you for tuning in. Hopefully, I got some information. I think what Robert Kennedy is saying really connects a lot of dots. And I wanted to just kind of peel back just a little bit more of the layer and connect even more dots. But the dots are being connected. So if the dots are being connected, that means that the next phase of this, I'm not saying that we're going to go into a blackout phase, but a possibility that we can go into a blackout phase. People like Bill Holter are saying, and it makes sense. The debt is collapsing. This planet here is $3 quadrillion in debt. The whole entire GDP of the planet is something like $800 trillion. The whole domestic product of the whole entire planet is $800 million. We cannot, nor will we ever be able to pay back the debt. the debt is outstanding. So as the debt bubble collapses, so does the ability of the banks to extend credit, and everything is run on credit. And so as the banks collapse and the banks and ability to expand credit, so does civilization, and starts to break down. So there could come a time where you call the police are not coming. You call 911, 911 is not coming. The government has collapsed, the banks have collapsed, and the currency has been totally debased and devalued. And so this is what we're dealing with. And I hope that I was able to convey this information on this podcast. Please like and subscribe. Guys, I don't know how I want to end this other than that God save this country, God save this planet. I love my country, but I wish for the whole entire world to be at peace. And hopefully one day that will be. And again, if we it goes back to like the book of Revelations, and it goes back to like premonitions and dreams and precognitive visions. If you get insight and have information about the future, then there's a possibility that you can change it. So there is a possibility that we can change this outcome. There's a possibility that we could change this future, because we've been given access to the future in terms of revelations, in terms of prophetic visions and dreams that all kind of people are having, and that there is an evil in this world that nobody can comprehend. And so I'm going to leave it on that. Please like and subscribe, and thank you guys, and stay blessed, and I'll see you on the other side.